Um, yeah, we are now online. So, medical missionary evangelism training, anatomy and physiology. In Proverbs chapter 11, verse 32, there is something interesting that the Bible reminds us of. Somebody to kindly read. Proverbs chapter 11, verse 30. If somebody gets there before me, you can kindly help us to read.
Says,
Yes, Brian.
the fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and he that winneth souls is wise.
And he that winneth souls is wise. So, to those of us who joined our classes during the introductory period, what's the main objective? What's the main objective of the medical missionary work? Somebody to remind us, if you know you are there during the introductory classes, the first 2 weeks. What did we say? What did we say was the main objective why we should study medical missionary work and just know everything that entails to disease, its causes and cures. Okay. Yes, Leslie, go ahead.
Hello. I'm not sure if this is the main reason, but I remember that medical missionary is to be the work of the church as the right arm of the body. So it's the right arm of the gospel.
Okay, it's the helping hand of the gospel. Anybody else with another idea? Yes, Kondwani.
Yeah, also it's even another tool to show more about Christ himself, and as well as another tool to preach about the gospel.
Thank you. So I'll read from Medical Ministry, page 143. I believe this is paragraph 2. It says, we should ever remember that the object of the medical missionary work is to point sin-sick men and women to the man of Calvary who taketh away the sin of the world. And so medical missionary, as my brother and sisters said, it is a work that helps us actually propel our ministry activities. It is a work that help us do successfully or engage successfully in missionary work in other fields, not all, in other fields. So the main object of the medical missionary work is to point sin-sick men to the man of Calvary. The main object of this particular work is to preach and proclaim the gospel of the three angels' message. The last message, or rather our mission as a church. And so that's why we are told to stretch forth our hands to them that are sick, to them that are in need, to them that are low in the society. And the medical missionary work helps us very much to stretch forth our hands alongside these particular this particular line. And our key text when we were doing Stretch Forth Thine Hand in the first 2 weeks was Luke chapter 6, verse 6. I think I should be in slide 25. Yes, I should be in slide 25. So human anatomy and physiology. This is our second introduction to it. And we saw in our last class that anatomy and physiology are two of the most basic terms and areas of study in life sciences. We read from the Spirit of Prophecy where Ellen White encourages, rather, she encouraged that physiology should be taught to children. It should be taught from childhood, not really to children, but it should be taught from childhood. Anatomy here refers to the internal and external structures of the body and their physical relationships. That one we saw. The internal, external structures of the body and their physical relationships. We saw that physiology simply refers to the biological functions of these particular structures. And we saw how our body is made up from the smallest component all the way to the largest component. And we saw that the smallest component was the atoms, but several atoms we saw makes an element. And so the smallest component in our body is an element, then a cell, then tissues. And we saw that all of our organs are made up of certain kinds of tissues. And these are examples of organ. The one on the left there is, can somebody tell the one on the left, what is it, the left side of your screen?
The heart.
Are you guys sure it's the heart and not the liver?
Yes, it's the heart.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. So all of our organs are made up of certain kinds of tissues. So this organ here on the left is the heart. We have the brain. We have the stomach. This other one on the right is the lungs. And then these tissues are made up of cells, as we saw in our last class. The tissues are made up of cells. And we have pancreas, we have muscles, we have heart, we have the blood, we have the brain, blah blah blah, all the way to the bones, kidney, liver. We have different types of cells that makes these particular tissues. The tissues here refers to the liver. The tissues here refers to Sorry about that. So these tissues are made up of cells. We saw let me get to these slides. We saw that there are certain types of biomolecules. There are certain types of molecules that makes up cells, and the cells make up tissues, and the tissues, they make up organs, and then the organs make up a body system. And the body system, we saw that it makes up the whole organism. And so the tissues, simply put, there are different types of tissues in the body, and there are more of just binding factors that helps bind cells together so that they can make an organ. And we looked at this yesterday, that biomolecules are made up of atoms. Atoms are the smallest elements. This is really not of essence to us. So anatomy simply mean just the biological forms. Where is the stomach? Where really is the liver, or let's say where's the liver, where's the pancreas, where are the kidneys in the body, where are they located, why, and the different forms. And physiology simply means the function of those particular body organs. So we will examine types of tissues in the body when studying anatomy, and we'll examine the types of tissues in the body, and we'll also look at the systems. I said we look at 11 systems in our body, and then look at the diseases that are related to these particular systems. The first system that we look at is the skeletal and muscular system. That is the bones and the muscles. In short, we look at the nervous system. We look at the endocrine. These are the endocrine system. It's just a group of hormones that control the happenings, the biological processes in our body. And then we look at the circulatory system. This circulatory system, simply put, is it's the blood, the heart, and the blood vessels. Circulatory system. The respiratory system is just the breathing system, breathing in and out from the environment all the way down to the breathing that happens at the cellular level for the breaking down of food and all that. The digestive system, I believe that's really common to most of us. That is the breakdown of food into smaller absorbable components. That's the digestive system. That's what we look at, how food is absorbed and broken down. And then the immune system is just the protective mechanism of the body. The body heals itself, the body protects itself against disease, and we'll be able to see how that really is possible. So we are told in Healthful Living, page 13, that it is well that physiology is introduced into the common schools as a branch of education. All children should study it. It should be regarded as the basis of all educational effort. And then parents should see to it that practical hygiene be added. This will make their knowledge of physiology of practical benefit. Those who understand physiology and hygiene, somebody to kindly help us read this particular quotation.
Those who understand physiology and hygiene will, in their ministerial labor, find it a means whereby they may enlighten others in regard to the proper and intelligent treatment of the physical, mental, and moral powers. Therefore, those who are preparing for the ministry should make a diligent study of the human organism, that they may know how to care for the body, not by means of drugs, but from nature's own laboratory. The Lord will bless those who make every effort to keep themselves free from disease and lead others to regard as sacred the health of the body as well as of the soul.
Thank you. So, of note to us are the words that are in red. Therefore, those who are preparing for the ministry should make a diligent study of the human organism, that they may know how to care for the body, not by the means of drugs, but from nature's own laboratory. For the ministry, for those who are getting into the ministry, and we are told in the book Acts of the Apostles, the very first chapter, when you read, you'll understand that everyone is called to actually be a minister in different capacities, of course. And so we are all called to ministry work. And if everyone is called to ministry work, then everyone is called to actually make, to know disease, to learn of it. Let's read a few quotations back here. Let's read a few quotations here. Let's see. Yeah, somebody to read this quotation.
As religious aggression subverts the liberties of our nation, those who would stand for freedom of conscience will be placed in unfavorable position. For their own sake, they should, while they have opportunity, become intelligent in regard to disease, its causes, prevention, and cure.
Thank you. So we are told that there's a time that is coming when we really won't be that free enough. We won't really be at that much liberty to publicly labor in preaching the gospel. And to actually, she advises that everyone really needs to become intelligent in regards to disease, its causes, prevention, and cure before that particular time comes, because it will really help us win souls for the master. There are several quotations that talks about the same, but we'll just move on. We'll just move on to what we discuss today. So this is just an overview of how we can better understand these terms. I believe that we won't really be confused on differentiating or knowing the meanings of the terms, because moving forward we won't labor on talking about the definition of these terms. So anatomy, structure, physiology, function, what they are made of, where they are located, associated structures, the relationship between the structures, anatomical structures, their functions, and then individual and cooperative functions. That's basically what we'll be studying in anatomy. And then on lifestyle, what we'll be studying is how our eating habits, how our living habits can affect the normal functioning of these particular structures. adversely to mean negatively or positively. So we'll combine all these together with lifestyle so that we can know these things practically. So physiology defines the study of normal functioning of a living organism and its component parts, includes all its chemical and physical processes. On the chemical and physical processes deeply, but we'll just do what is necessary. Anatomy is structure, physiology is function. So organization of life, that's what we've just seen, how life is organized all the way from atom to an organism. So we saw that the cell is the unit of life. Like life starts existing at a cell, because that's where breathing in, not really breathing in, but at the cell is where we have like we have levels of respiration. We have levels of respiration, and there's the lowest level of respiration is the cells. This is where the oxygen and CO2 the exchange happens at the lowest unit. It doesn't happen at the molecules. That's why the cells is regarded as the basic unit of life, because aside from us breathing in a mixture of gases that is there into our body, in the cells the same thing happens, but in the cells it is not the air that is taken in, but oxygen that has been purely refined that is taken in. It's actually called respiration, taken in and out. So the cell is the basic unit of life. And we've seen that the organization of life, it starts from the molecules all the way to the organism. We won't labor more discussing that. And red blood cell is just an example of a cell. So cells need oxygen, and red blood cells carry oxygen to them. That's a function. That's now physiology. Oxygen binds to hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is a component in the blood. The blood has about 3 components, of which hemoglobin is one of them. And oxygen binds to hemoglobin molecules contained in the red blood cells. And from that, the oxygen can be translocated, or rather transported to the areas that are needed, to the cells that they are needed, and to the organs that they are needed. But the organs really don't need oxygen. It is the cells that needs that oxygen to give life to the organ. So we will study the functions and the mechanisms of all these things. So an example is that upper one is a function. Cells need oxygen, and red blood cells carry oxygen to them. So what is the mechanism? How does this happen? The mechanism is how it happens. How does the red blood cell transfer or carry oxygen? And how do these cells that need oxygen get that particular oxygen? So that is the mechanism. So we'll be studying under physiology the functions and mechanism. And so we said that the second level in the human in this particular, the organization of life, the organization of life, the second level is the cellular level. And we saw that the cells are simply just several molecules that are combined. And so cells are the basic structural and functional units of an organism. Cells are the basic structural and functional units of an organism. We cannot attach any function to molecules or any structural or any structure to the molecules. They do have a structure, but they can only be viewed, including the cells, under a microscope. So many different kinds of cells are in the body. We have the muscle cells, we have the nerve cells. Nerve cells, they normally have receptors towards different stimuli. An example is pain. And another example is taste and all that, taste, pain. And so when a nerve is, when some let me say, when some trauma is subjected to a nerve, then the nerve will react and inform the brain that there is something being inflicted to the body, and the body needs to react in a particular way. That's the function of the nerve cells. It's more of a communication link between different parts of the body to the brain. And then we have epithelial cells. Epithelial cells, they are more of the tissues that epithelial tissues are tissues that they're normally linked to the bones. So tissues are groups of cells and materials surrounding them, and we have four basic types of tissues. Those are the four basic types of tissues. We have the muscular tissues, that's the muscles. We have the nervous tissues, that's the nervous system. We'll see that. We have the connective tissues, that is the tissues that connects joints, and then the epithelial tissues, they are more of they deal with the bones. So an organ level. What's an organ? What's an organ level? The organ level, it's the second last level in the organization of life, and we saw that many tissues makes up an organ. And so these are these are some of the examples of organs that we have. That is the heart, lungs, kidneys, stomach. And then we have serous membrane, smooth muscles, epithelial layers. So we have the heart, lungs, kidney, and stomach. And these particular organs, they're made of several tissues. And we'll see some of the tissue layers that makes up the stomach, specifically when talking about ulcers. So a system, that's an organ system, consists of related organs with a common function. That's what we term as a system, organs with a common function. So some of the organ systems that we have are the digestive system. This is just a recap. It includes the organs such as the mouth, the small and the large intestines, that the digestive system. The liver, the gallbladder, and the pancreas. Why? Because they all have a function to do when it comes to digestion. So we have 11 systems of the body that we'll in-depthly discuss the important areas. So the last level is the organism, which is as a full-fledged animal, an organism or a living individual. That is an organismal level. All parts of the body functioning together. So an organism is all parts of the body brought together to do a function. So these are the types of systems, just a review of what we've talked about. And I believe we shouldn't stay there that much. So integration of systems. Integrations between systems. These are several systems brought together. And here we can see the digestive system, we see the circulatory system, the respiratory system, and how these systems work in relation, like work together. So I'll just give us a few minutes to look at the diagram, then I'll explain. So I believe we've looked at it and seen, picked up something at least. So from what you've looked at, from what you've seen, allow me just ask a question probably before. There's someone with their microphone. There's someone who was unmuted. So from what you've seen, allow me ask a question. Which system serves lots of system in our body? Like, yeah, which system serves almost every other system in the body? Yes, James. Yes, James, go ahead.
The circulatory system.
Yes, thank you. The circulatory system. And in Leviticus 11 verse 17, I believe we are told that, I believe I explained what the circulatory system. Circulatory system, it simply means the pumping of blood from, the movement of blood throughout the body. And every organ in the body needs the blood. And we are told that the life of the flesh, the life of the organism, lies in the blood, how healthy the blood is. So the system here that serves most of the systems is the circulatory system. There's a relationship between each and every system, and when one is affected adversely, then the other one sympathizes. The other one is also injured as well. An example, in the circulatory system, we see the circulatory system supplying blood to the urinary system. It supplies blood to the reproductive system. It supplies blood to the muscular and skeletal system. Actually, in the skeletal system, that's where the blood is made. It supplies blood to the nervous and the endocrine system, all the way to the respiratory system, all the way to the integumentary system. That is where the skin and the skin is. So when the blood is toxic, then this blood, when it gets to our organ, the organ starts affected in a way. The organ becomes affected because the cells need oxygen that is in the blood to survive. And so when the cells don't get enough oxygen, what will happen? Hypoxia. Hypoxia simply means like the blood, the cells are not getting enough oxygen, and so they begin suffocating from not getting the required oxygen. And there are several things that would make the blood, number one, not to supply enough oxygen to the different types of cells that there is in the body. And so we have the respiratory system. The respiratory system, we can see how it serves the circulatory system. Because in the circulatory system, the main there are certain functions of the circulatory system. Number one, the circulatory system, it helps to normalize blood. It helps to normalize regulate body temperature. That is number one. Number two, the circulatory system helps in the transport of oxygen to different cells. That is number two. It has three main functions. And then we see that for the circulatory system to supply these other cells, to supply every other cell with blood, then it needs the help of the respiratory system. It is through the respiratory system that air gets into the lungs, and the air that gets into the lungs gets straight into the smallest component of the respiratory system, that is the alveoli. There are more of air sacs, and in the air sacs there is a barrier, a very thin layer, a very thin barrier that allows the air to diffuse into the blood, and the air diffuses into the blood, and the oxygen attaches to the hemoglobin, and by that it is circulated into the body. And so when the circulatory system is damaged, and in a way, if the airways is obstructed, the circulatory system, we have the airways, and also we have the areas where the exchange of air happens. The airways are more of the conduction systems. And so when these airways are blocked, when these airways their mechanisms of protections are hindered or are affected, then there is a way the respiratory system won't function well, and the circulatory system will be affected in turn. And when the circulatory system is affected, then more other systems are affected. That's how deep disease can really affect different kinds of systems. That's how an understanding of anatomy and physiology is very important for us to know really what is happening to the body, for us to relate different kinds of pains, different kinds of systems, for us to attach them to a malfunction, for us to attach them probably to a remedy that would help. And so that's just an overview of what we'll see. Though we'll study these systems independently, yes. So we see the urinary system, it really requires the blood. So which is the largest system? Now the system that supplies most of the organs is the circulatory system. Which is the largest system that we have in our body? Somebody. Yes, Kondwani.
I guess it's integumentary. That's the skin.
Yeah, the skin is part of the integumentary. Thank you. It is that one. So we'll just move to the next slide. So we want to see the cell structures and the function, and just an overview of the organelle of an organelle, the functions of an organelle. So basically, this is just the cell structures, the cell structure, and yeah, this basically is the cell structure. And there's a lot that happens at the cellular level. Anyone who knows what happens at the cellular level? Anyone who knows what happens at the cellular level, or the functions of cells? Somebody to just raise their hand. Anyone who knows the functions of a cell? So the cells are very important and integral part of the organism, because a lot happens in the cell. There's a lot that happens in the cell. And number one, the foods that we eat, well, it is broken down in the digestive system. and it's broken down into different kinds of components. But it is in the cell that these particular foods, these particular nutrients are converted into energy. It is in the cells that happens, converted into energy. And aside from that, aside from the foods being converted into energy, we have certain types of there are specialized cells that carry certain types of very special functions. An example are the pancreatic cells that helps in the regulation of blood sugar in the blood, that helps balance the blood sugar. So cells are very important, and there are certain things that normally leads to the death of cells, and I believe that we mentioned a lot of them when studying when having our classes on nutrition. What are some of the things that Elder Maxwell said can lead to cellular death, and the technical word for cellular death is, okay, I'm forgetting. What are some of the things that he said can lead to cellular death? You know, when the cell dies, then there are certain things that, an example, diabetes type 2 is just a case of cellular death. Cell that has started malfunctioning and probably on its way of dying. So can somebody remind us some of the things that Maxwell said can lead to cellular death? Some of our habits of eating that can lead to cellular death, or habits of life. Anybody? Anybody? Okay, there's no one who has raised his hand, or rather their hand. It's okay. It's okay. Nobody even remembers fried foods.
Okay, I think putting toxins in our bodies.
Yeah, and one of the guys, do you remember him talking about oxidized cholesterol? Talking about arachidonic acid. Arachidonic acid is oxidized cholesterol. Anyway, it's fine. We'll just test on that, then revise and know better. Basically, it's just toxins. We can find that in polluted air. He talked about the lead. He talked about mercury, and he talked about several things. We'll move cell membrane. Cell membrane it's more of a wall in the cells. So membranes in the body, there are different kinds of membranes that we'll see. The different kinds of membranes that we'll see, and there are certain functions. The main function of a membrane is that it allows certain substances in and outside. It's very selective. Cell membranes are very selective. Pericardial membrane is also a membrane that protects the heart from trauma, to protect the heart from trauma. So what are some of the main functions of cell membrane? That is physical barrier. An example is the pericardial membrane that protects the heart from trauma. We have its cell membranes are gateway for exchange of nutrients. I said that cells, they normally take the nutrients that we eat and transform them into energy. And then there is communication that happens between the cells, the neurons. And then it gives the body its structure, or cells its structure. So the cell membrane is semi-permeable. That would mean there are certain types of things that it allows inside, and it doesn't allow others to pass through it. And certain types of practices that can hinder these particular function, or rather the permeability of cells. An example is saturated fats. Saturated fats makes the cell membrane more permeable to an extent that the cells will allow almost everything to pass through them, and that causes different kinds of autoimmune diseases. Different kinds of autoimmune diseases, allergies included, and several hypersensitivity. Let me just say hypersensitivity to different kinds of stimuli, including insect bites, including plants, and all that. But there are several reasons that we'll discuss when talking about the immune system. So this is our last slide and the second last slide. And the truth for this time, that's the third angel's message, is to be proclaimed with a loud voice. This simply means with increasing power. As we approach the great final test, this test must come to the churches in connection with true medical missionary work, a work that has the greater physician to dictate and preside all of its comprehends. And so it's very important for us to learn and understand this. And so beginning next time, in our next class, when we'll be studying anatomy, we'll start with the first system. That's on Thursday. We'll be having a class with the first cohort, and we'll start by studying the systems that they've not studied. And then once we start getting through the systems that they've studied, we'll have separate classes again. So on Thursday, we'll begin studying the skeletal and muscular system. And so that is it for our class today, and that is it for the introductory part of anatomy and physiology. Unless somebody has a question, I believe we've talked about everything that is basic, and we really won't find any difficulties now looking at these systems. Anybody with a question? Okay, seems like there is nobody with a question. So I'll just say a prayer, then we'll end our class at that. We have 6 minutes to end our class today. Fortunately, we ended too early. It won't be the same case. Probably in our next classes. Probably. So on Monday and Tomorrow is Monday. On Monday and Tuesday, Maxwell will join us again to conclude on nutrition. We'll talk about food combination. We'll talk a bit about the art of cookery. So I'll just say a prayer and then we'll be at liberty to leave. Let's believe and pray. Lord, we thank you for the lessons that we've learned today. May you help us not to forget, but to always remember them as we labor in different ministerial lines. For you is my prayer, trusting and believing in Jesus' name. Amen. Have a nice time.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you. Take care.